And welcome into Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're having a wonderful Sunday evening. I know some may be distracted by the football goings-ons, but in the meantime, we are up and running. And certainly appreciate any of your support as we get on the air here on Hoopsville. Plenty to talk about as we are 19 days into January, about 6 weeks left in the basketball season, if I do my regular season, that is, if I do that correct. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks left. 5 of the regular season plus 1 of the conference tournaments. Unless, of course, you're the UAA, you don't play that conference tournament. So 6 weeks left until Selection Sunday. Of course, we'll find out on Matchup Monday when teams are actually into the NCAA tournament. But that is where we are. 6 weeks left. 6 weeks left. And there's certainly lots to talk about across Division III. Both on the men's and women's side. Let's quickly look at who we will have on the show tonight. Of course, I buried that piece of paper, apparently. I didn't want to hold on to it. There we go. Mary Hardin-Baylor's coach Ken DeWeese will be our first guest tonight. We'll talk about the season after playing in the championship game in Atlanta. Of course, at the same time, talk about playing all but 3 of your games in conference action, the change with the ASC. We'll talk to Coach DeWeese there. He is knocking on the doorstep of 700 wins. We'll talk to him about that as well. Eastern Connecticut State men's basketball coach Bill Geithner will join us on the show as well. We'll talk about what looks to be a pretty good Warriors squad, not getting any attention really, maybe outside New England. Of course, this is in a Little East conference that it's a hodgepodge of who's comes out of there. Eastern Connecticut, Western Connecticut, you name a school probably comes out of there and has a decent run in the NCAA tournament or represents themselves well. But what's the next step for this conference, as it were, especially to gain some respect? I think Eastern Connecticut only with 4 losses on the season. We'll switch into women's basketball. Concordia, Wisconsin women's basketball coach Stacy Brunner-Jones will join us, talk about her team's terrific season so far. Could they crack into the top 25? They are 14-1 overall, and they aren't getting a single vote in the top 25. Talk to her about that, about where her team may fit in all of this, and if they deserve to be in the top 25, or at least getting voted on. We'll talk to her about that. Also, they have a very significant tournament coming up here by the end of the month, but I think next weekend, actually. We'll talk to her about that as well. Ferrum women's basketball took their first loss of the season today. Coach Brian Harvey will be on the show. Talk about that loss. Also about the fact that they are backloaded on their schedule. If you look at their February schedule, it is loaded with games. They have only played 11 so far, when most teams have played 14 or 15. Most of their games are in February. We'll talk to Coach Harvey about that and the change with the USA South. On the women's side, actually technically a split conference. We'll talk to him about that. What are the chances this conference gets 3 teams like they did last year, if you remember, with Piedmont, Ferrum, and Maryville? We'll talk to him about that. Of course, Ferrum ranked number 20 right now in the top 25. Be interesting to see if they fall out of that ranking or not with their loss today against LaGrange. Of course, that was a home game. Augustana men's basketball coach will be on. We'll talk to Coach Gray about his team. 14-2 overall with a win over Wheaton this week. They are 13th ranked right now. We'll see if that changes or not. Of course, they have beaten Illinois Wesleyan, who's ranked number 4 right now. We'll talk to him about the CCIW. Wheaton, who's 21st ranked, probably falls out of the top 25. I think they've lost 3 straight, if memory serves. They have definitely lost 2 straight. Carthage and then Augustana. They beat Augustana. I'm getting Wheaton confused with somebody else. Augustana lost to Wheaton last Saturday, but then Wheaton followed that up with losses to Carthage and Illinois Wesleyan. Certainly not bad losses. Certainly follows up the the bottom isn't beating the top, and the top isn't beating the bottom. Of course, North Central's in the bottom, which I think is very interesting out of there. But North Central and Elmhurst are the only ones who have beaten each other this week out of the bottom group. Anyway, we'll talk to Coach Gray about Augustana and the CCIW, and of course the Midwest region as well. And then Staten Island has won 11 straight. They are 12-2 overall, not receiving any votes in the top 25 on the men's side of things. We'll talk to Coach Petosa about his team, about his Dolphins squad. We'll talk to him about the CUNYAC and what Staten Island got ahead of them and their schedule, and what can they do? Maybe can they make waves in the NCAA tournament, knowing they will probably get a tough bracket nonetheless. So that is what we have ahead. Of course, in that Atlantic region, there's also SUNY Purchase, who is getting top 25 love. You also have the NJAC and the likes of William Patterson and Richard Stockton. Of course, those two teams, top of the conference, will face off at the end of this coming week. So that'll be a game everybody will be keeping an eye on as well. So lots to talk about throughout those realms. Some interesting developments yesterday. Worcester and Wittenberg, another classic rivalry game between the two of those two teams. Worcester did not essentially blow a 19-point lead, but they nearly gave it up. Wittenberg went on a 14-1 run to make that one interesting, but Worcester held on to win 69-62. Interesting enough, we'll see what the voters do with Wittenberg. Wittenberg lost 2 games this week, DePaul being the other one. And remember, it wasn't even close in the DePaul game. DePaul then follows up that win with a loss to Ohio Wesleyan. So the NCAC is definitely beating each other up a little bit. What will the voters do will be the question with all those teams. I know if DePaul had beaten Ohio Wesleyan, I was going to seriously put them into the top 25. Now Ohio Wesleyan has won. I think the NCAC is going to leave a lot of voters with a lot of questions. Wesley, by the way, smoking along here in the Mid-Atlantic, and I think undersung a little bit. 14th ranked team beat the 16th ranked St. Mary's Seahawks. I've had St. Mary's as the best team in the region in terms of my top 25. That's going to change dramatically here. Wesley has only lost 1 game this season. They are playing extremely good basketball. They are beating everybody, even on the road, and I think that's the key. They have a very difficult place to play in, but they are winning on the road. Their loss this season was to a pretty tough Marymount squad this season. That was on the road. But the St. Mary's game win, that was on the road. They beat Mary Washington at their place. They beat Salisbury at their place. That's all in the last week plus. They beat Christopher Newport on the road. Those are significant wins considering Christopher Newport and St. Mary's have to come back to Wesley and Dover, Delaware. And that's going to be a big game. Of course, this is all looming. February 3rd, it's Cabrini versus Wesley in non-conference action. An odd date for that game thanks to a weather delay a couple weeks ago. So while Wesley is smoking along right now in the CAC, 6-1 in the conference, and on top of the conference, or I should say half game behind Mary Washington, who's actually 7-1, this game looming with Cabrini is starting to take on a bigger and bigger picture realm here. That game again on the 3rd of February, and that is a Monday. So I think a lot of people have circled that game throughout the country to see how that one turns out. But again, St. Mary's has to come to Wesley. Christopher Newport has to come to Wesley. Wesley's done a good job so far on the road, and they may be positioning themselves much better than people hope. The big thing here is I don't know if Wesley can host an NCAA tournament game, people. I don't know if their facility meets the minimum for the NCAA tournament. I know we're 6 weeks out, but that thing doesn't change. The question now becomes, what does Wesley do in terms of hosting? And I'm saying that blind. I don't remember the seating capacity for that gym, but it is not a big gym. I am quite sure Wesley's either going to have to go on the road or find a location to host the event. And I'm going to gamble on thinking that hosting at another location isn't going to be a great option for Wesley. So Wesley may be playing well, but they're going to have to win on the road, it certainly looks like, at this point in time. Lots of other games to cover on the men's side, certainly interest of note. By the way, women's side, terrific game between Whitman and George Fox. And quickly, let me back up. George Fox men defeated Whitworth men this weekend. That's a significant win in the Northwest Conference. I think that Northwest Conference is unfortunately setting itself up for just one bid. Only because the rest of the conference has gotten so good. I just don't know if the SOS numbers are going to allow them 2 bids, but lots to figure out between now and then to be sure. But back to the women, George Fox and Whitman, 2 undefeated teams, had a terrific game. George Fox actually led by 2 with about 5.5 minutes left to go in that game. Unfortunately losing. Whitman now 15-0, 6-0 in the conference. George Fox 14-1 and 5-1 in conference play. That Northwest Conference on the women's side could easily get 3 teams. I kid you not. George Fox, Whitman. You can't forget some of the other teams out there that are certainly in that conference, deserving of love. Hold on a quick second. I want to double check the conference standings. Whitman, George Fox, Whitworth playing well. Puget Sound is on the doorstep. I wouldn't be surprised if 3 teams come out of the Northwest Conference, though I do want to clarify that might need a at-large team getting, or a non-at-large team maybe winning the conference playoffs, but we will see. Lots going on the women's side. Number 15, St. Thomas is in a tailspin here. They've lost 2 of their last 4 in women's basketball. This time now a home loss to Concordia Moorhead. I'm not saying tailspin in a negative way. I just mean 2 of 4 losses. It's certainly not helpful when you have 3 games stacked on top of each other like they did this past week due to weather conditions. But they lost to St. Mary's back on the 11th, beat Bethel, beat Gustavus Adolphus, then lost to Concordia Moorhead yesterday. So 2 of the last 4 games on the last 8 days have been losses to St. Thomas, and that's going to take a little bit of a blow there in the MIAC, to be sure. But lots of other things to talk about. I'm sure many of you have questions to talk about, and so we encourage you to interact with us. At D3 Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville is how you can interact with us on Twitter. We have our Twitter page up. We're certainly keeping track of what's going on. Wesley's Gin update seats 350. Well, that answers that question. Thanks, Nate. Wesley, I didn't think Wesley could host a game by any stretch of the imagination. I just didn't want to assume or flat out say that. And what I mean by they can't host a game, they're not going to be able to host a facility in their facility. If Wesley men want to host any part of the NCAA tournament, they're going to have to work with somebody and get another site. It's something I'll certainly see if I can work or look into right now, but I would be pretty surprised if they're going to be able to host, which means somebody's going to host in the early rounds of the NCAA tournament who normally would not host, and Wesley's going to travel on the road. That's just how it works. By the way, other questions, also email us at hoopsville at d3hoops.com. That's hoopsville at d3hoops.com. Don't forget on Facebook as well, facebook.com/hoopsville. That's how you can interact with us. We certainly would hope you will take the time to do so. Like I said, guests coming up, Mary Hardin-Baylor's Coach Ken DeWeese, Eastern Connecticut State's Coach Bill Geithner, Concordia, Wisconsin women's basketball coach Stacey Brenner-Jones, Ferrum women's basketball coach Brian Harvey, Augustana men's basketball coach Greg Giovanni, and Staten Island's men's basketball coach Tony Petosa. That is what we've got scheduled for the show, plus your questions, your thoughts, anything we can cover. 6 weeks from tonight, we'll be talking about who's in and who's probably out of the NCAA tournament, so we have plenty to talk about between now and then, of course, as well tonight. We're going to take a break. When we come back, jump into Texas, talk to Coach Ken DeWeese from Mary Hardin-Baylor, talk about his team so far in the this season, a year after playing in the championship game, the ASC makeup, and plenty more. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com and the National Association of Basketball Coaches. We'll be back right after this.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
Division III allows you to be able to give yourself to other things. Not even just participate in them, but really get involved with them if you want to.
There's a lot of interaction. Not sitting back, taking notes. You're actually doing hands-on things and better preparing yourself for your major.
Division III school, I've had the opportunity to my leadership skills and to be more involved on campus.
Division III in athletics, affords students the opportunity not only to participate in intercollegiate athletics at a competitive level, but also gives them the opportunity to, engage in the other interests in their campus and in their lives outside of that sport and outside of the academics on the campus.
And to have opportunity to have time to join clubs and being able to play basketball, it allows you to just be able to do everything you want to do. I wouldn't change it for the world.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at d3hoops.com at w.d3hoops.com.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Broadcasting, as always, from our studios here in the Baltimore area. Appreciate you taking the time to join us. Forgot to mention in the opening segment, we once again encourage everybody to support us on our fundraising project. If you want more information, you can always check us out on Twitter and all that stuff. Twitter, Facebook, we've been posting it a lot of places. It's also on d3hoops.com. By the way, the revamped and redesigned d3hoops.com. We hope you enjoy the site if you haven't checked it out already. Also revamped D3 Hoopsville website as a result as well. Hope you can check that out. We'll talk more about the fundraiser throughout the show, but please consider it. We certainly appreciate those who have already contributed. We're about 30% of our goal. Certainly would love to hit our goal and surpass our goal. Fundraiser runs for another 3 weeks until February 9th. Don't forget, coming up in 11 days on January 30th, we will go 12 hours here on Hoopsville, 10 a.m., 10 p.m. Eastern Time, talking all things basketball as we get ready for the final 4 weeks of the basketball regular season. Let's go to the Hoopsville hotline and waste a little less time. Before we do that, by the way, don't forget Twitter, at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Interact with us, have a conversation with us, ask us questions, ask our guest questions. You can also do that through Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville, and, of course, also email hoopsville@d3hoops.com. Let's go to the Hoopsville hotline, and joining us from the South region is Mary Hardin-Baylor men's basketball coach Ken DeWeese. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville once again.
Dave, it's good to talk to you again.
Well, I appreciate it's been a long trip, as it were, since you guys played in the national championship back in, as that sounds to everybody. Of course, finishing runner-up there. Before we get into the season, you were, 9 months after that fact. What was the reaction back at home? Has there still been a reaction ever since to that game?
Well, there's no question it has been. For one reason, our football team has been in the national championship game. They lost in the national semifinals this year, 16-15, to the eventual national champion, University of Wisconsin at Whitewater. So because the football team has been successful and because we've been successful, it's something around here on campus, quite frankly, look at as whether or not we're successful for the year. So, yes, there is some talk about it. Obviously, as we're playing right now, the things we've had to endure, there's not much talk about us getting there this year, but it is certainly on people's minds. And one of the reasons is the football team is so successful, they do keep that thought of winning the national championship on everybody's thoughts.
Sure. Of course, the football team opened up a brand new. I don't know the right word to describe it, because any word I can think of would probably not do it justice. It sounds like it's too little a word. But one heck of a facility in terms of not only Division III but Texas. My question is, have you ever thought about throwing a special game there at midcourt?
No, that has never entered my mind. That's a good.
Would be a great.
Only you would come up with an idea like that.
I'm just saying it'd be kind of crazy to see you guys playing at midfield of the new football stadium. I think it would certainly grab some people's attention. The scoreboard would have some great replays of you guys.
Well, we would love to do it. The football stadium. The only way I know to describe it is with one word: is palatial.
Yeah,
it's an enjoyable place to watch a game. But I just can't imagine what it would be like to be a football player and to have that many fans, and the two tiers stacked up and be that close to the sidelines. It's as close to, and this is one of the things they wanted to do, it's as close to a basketball venue to play football in as you can possibly get, and not be playing indoor or arena football.
Well, from everything I've heard, they've done a wonderful job with it. Everything I've seen on video, they've certainly done a great job. Let's switch to you here. As you pointed out, not the season I know you were hoping for. Started off the year going 3-5. You got bit on a 4-game winning streak there to close out 2013 and start 2014, but 3 of the last 4, unfortunately, have tripped you up. Team is 8-7 overall, 6-6 in conference play. What's the difference between this year and last year?
The main difference is that the three seniors we had were extremely important to us, but we've just had so much inconsistent play, and it's not just on the offensive end or the defensive end. We'll have three guys play very well one night, and then two or three guys just won't show up. Well, the next game, those two guys play, three guys that played well do not show up. There's just been a tremendous amount of inconsistency. There have been some very unusual things that have happened to this group. In my 45 years of coaching, I've never had a young man injured in an automobile accident in season or out of season. And in the first 2 weeks of the game season, we had two of our guys had serious automobile accidents, and a couple of guys missed practice time and game time, and it really had a negative effect on our guys. I didn't think it would, but it did. We've had another guy that was very important in our 8-man rotation or 9-man rotation. It's got down to 7 or 8 now. Had a medical procedure, and he's out for the rest. We've really had some unusual things. We haven't had this normal sprained ankles or knee problems or things that you usually have to deal with. We have had some adversity from a very unusual set of circumstances. That is not an excuse. We still haven't played well. The big thing is that our guys believe they can still turn it around and that we can compete for the conference championship in the conference tournament, and I have to agree with them. We can't do.
Team is 8-7, as we mentioned, and Coach, you talk about all the bang-ups, and of course that ends up giving you a rather interesting stat lines when you start going through all the numbers and looking at players who've played and not played. And right now you're being led by James Allen, 19.3 points a game, 14.5 from Gerard Graham, 13.5 out of Antoine Chaney, and 12.3 from Kittrick Bell. Certainly gets a lot of points there and not a lot of contributions from others. But as you point out, it's probably because you have a shorter bench. So really you're relying on 4 big guys, don't you?
Yes, we do. We're playing, actually we're down to, so we had a 9-man rotation. We lost one of those. Then we got down to 8, and the guy that was number 8 has not performed well, quite honestly. So we're playing a 7-person rotation, which is fine with me. If we can get a little bit more consistent production. And if we had consistent production, we would not be where we are. We would only have maybe 2 losses at the most. All of our losses have been close. We've been in every game with 2 minutes to go. So if we were a little bit consistent, we would be close to where we were this past year. It's just the consistent thing has not been there. I do like getting down to 7 or 8, quite frankly. We were trying to play so many last year. It's much easier on the coach, and it makes everybody else in that top 7 or 8 much happier. Now, the end of your bench may not be as happy, but it certainly does make things a lot better game time-wise. And another thing that's very confusing about these guys, they have been excellent in practice all year. That's an outstanding practice team. We just haven't been able to translate getting to the game and putting it all together with all of our people. But it's not for lack of effort. They are working at it, and they're trying. And I'm not real sure we're out of the whole thing yet, but it's going to be a steep uphill climb.
You talk about liking the shorter bench. I mean, one thing that I think that I certainly noticed last guys was that you guys would go up tempo, you would change the game plan, you would throw in some odd mixes at occasion, especially in the NCAA tournament. I mean, you came from deep behind against St. Thomas. You came from behind against other opponents, at Whitworth, for example, to win those games. And it certainly seemed like the depth was a factor because you would go up-tempo and give guys breaks. With a shorter bench, are you still going up-tempo, or have you had to rein that thing in a little bit?
No, we're really not playing a lot different as far as tempo goes, and we're playing pretty much the same defensively. We're just extending the minutes of players that are actually doing it. We've worked real hard in getting them in top condition. I think James Allen is averaging like 33 minutes a game. Kittrick Bell's averaging right about 30. Gerard Graham's averaging about 31 minutes a game. So we're finally getting those guys to where they can really go and play for that amount of time. And they go into the game knowing that they're going to be on the floor most of the time, and it's really worked out pretty well. And we've got a big guy that's Division II transfer, Kevin Waller, that is just now beginning to come around and do the things we want him to do, and he's going to be a little bit more effective for us. So once he gets a little bit more effective, we can get back to that 8-man rotation, and I think it'll make us a different team.
Talking to Coach Ken DeWeese here of UMHB, the team is 8-7 overall. Playing the ASC, of course, they're 6-6 in that conference, being led the conference being led by Texas Dallas right now, undefeated in the conference at 10-0. Louisiana College, Concordia, Texas Tyler, Hardin-Simmons all fighting for a playoff spot. And, Coach, that gets me to my next question. This conference completely changed itself, went from a divisional setup to an overall setup, meaning 22 games of your 25 were going to be in conference. I know when you and I talked last year, you were really unhappy about that. It really limited at least you having the ability to play a lot of games outside of conference. How's it gone this year? I mean, granted, from your standpoint, the way the team struggled, the out-of-conference isn't as big a deal, but from what have you heard from around the conference, how do you think things have shaped up after all?
Well, I think most of the guys were just pretty much determined to go ahead and go with it the way it was going to be. There was not going to be a lot of discussion. We couldn't do anything else. Our presidents from the very birth of our conference have used the word maximize conference opponents for the schedule. And I certainly can't go against that philosophy because where we are, we're isolated as far as the number of Division III schools go. So we had to go with that. However, it did put us in conference play awfully early, and this team that I had in particular needed another game or two. What it did, and what it really did, was affect our ability, as you said, to go outside the conference and go to a different part of the country and experience different styles so that when you come back, it just, our trip to Whitworth and Whitman last year was extremely advantageous for us as far as our team growth went. We lost both of them, but it was a very good growth cycle that we went through on that trip. So the 3 non-conference games makes it extremely difficult for all of us. UT Dallas is shooting the ball very well, and that's the reason they're shooting almost 50%, and that's the reason they're at the top. Concordia has been shooting the ball well. They didn't last night, yesterday, obviously. UT Dallas beat them 35, I think. I haven't seen that game yet, but they didn't shoot the ball well. UT Tyler is good. They're playing well. Louisiana College is shooting the ball well. So we have 4 or 5 teams in our league that are shooting it unusually well in the 15 years that I've been in the league. I like the divisional format, but I think I'm going to like the fact that we all play each other twice like we're doing. I think this time next year I'm just going to like it even more. Of course, we're losing Mississippi College,
right?
So we'll be down to we'll have 5 non-conference games next year. But I really think the format is good. I think it makes it from a player standpoint. I think it is a whole lot better. You play Louisiana College early, you know you got to play them again. And used to we'd play them early and then have to see them again until the next year or the conference tournament. So I think in all, I think it's a really good format.
Talking to Coach Ken DeWeese here, I certainly like the ODAC model, but we could go round and round in circles on that and get nowhere. Because, obviously I don't make decisions, and you're just along for the ride at somewhat as well. But as the makeup of this conference, Texas Dallas certainly looks really good this year. But we're looking at probably a 1-bid conference this year. Comets playing very well, haven't lost since they played Trinity, Texas back on December 10th. Is this pretty much Texas Dallas's to lose?
I'd say so at this point. We're starting the second round of conference play starting on this next Thursday. Now, Terry Butterfield, the coach at UT Dallas, has a very tough schedule coming up. He has to play his travel partner again, which is Hardin-Simmons.
Right.
They had a game postponed because of weather with the University of the Ozarks. So he's going to have 2 straight weeks of 3 games per week, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. And I don't care who you are. That's a very difficult stretch at this time of year. The semester has just started again for class, and to play 6 games in, what's that going to be, 12 or 13 days?
Yeah.
It is going to, we just went through one of those, it was during the holiday period. It is going to put them, it's going to stretch them pretty good. That's going to be hard for anybody to get through. So I don't think they'll get through unscathed just because our league, the top part of our league is really good, very good, and the bottom part of our league is better than it usually is. So I think they'll lose 1 or 2, but I think if he can get through these 6 games in the next 2 weeks successfully, if he can go 4 out of 6, or if he can win 5 out of 6, we'll all be going back to Dallas for the conference tournament.
Right. By the way, how many teams are making the conference tournament this year?
8.
So 8 teams.
The top 8 will go.
Very good. Of course, yes, all hosted at the one site, and there'll be Texas, Dallas for that. Well, Coach, I appreciate you taking the time to join us and talk not only your team and the tough struggles you guys have had, but also talk about the conference. Certainly appreciate the time that you have and given us. And as always, we give the guests the final word. Any final thoughts you'd like to share with those who may be tuning in?
I think the experience we had last year in Atlanta in the Final Four, we're not doing it that way this year. The championship's going to be in Salem. I love those people. Mr. Harvey Cutter is a very unusual personality. I love that guy. He is unique, and he's great and fun to be around. He came and visited us in football, and I love the way Salem does that. They love what they're doing. They handle it very well. But the experience for the young men to be involved in the Final Four, the whole atmosphere and the things that go on, you were there. You saw how much both teams of the guys enjoyed it. I think that is something we've got to continue to visit and continue to talk and see if we can get that done on a permanent basis.
Yeah, well, I couldn't agree with you more, though. You're right. Salem does a wonderful job. Counting this year, 5 more years going through Salem, so we certainly look forward to that. By the way, I should forget to mention you're on the doorstep of win number 700. I prematurely jumped the gun last night, saw your women's team won, and thought I was reading your score, so apologize to all the fans out there who thought I was completely losing my mind and maybe for jinxing you. But because I won't get the chance to do it formally, congratulations when you do hit that milestone. Certainly an impressive feat nonetheless.
Well, you didn't jinx us because I wasn't aware of it. I'll have to go and check to see what you're talking about.
Well, I've done the math, and I checked with your SID. You're at $6.99 in your career, $2.95 at Mary.
I did not know that. I did not know that.
Well, there you go, Coach. You're right. I didn't jinx you if you can't tell, if you didn't even know it was happening.
No, you didn't jinx us.
Very good.
I wish it would have been that easy, but we had many reasons we lost that game.
Yeah, I figured there were lots of other factors. Well, Coach, good luck. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. We'll certainly keep an eye on the Crusaders. You never know when it comes to conference tournament time, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Dave. We appreciate you.
Hey, thank you, Coach. Take care.
Okay.
Coach Ken DeWeese joining us here on the Hoopsville Hotline. Appreciate him taking the time to do so. We're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we'll stay in the men's basketball realm. We'll jump, though, from Texas to Connecticut. Talk to Eastern Connecticut State Coach Bill Geithner. Talk about his team and how they're doing on top of their conference and how he sees things shaping up not only in the conference but also in the region. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com and, as always, by the National Association of Basketball Coaches. We appreciate their support, and we appreciate your support. You're listening to Hoopsville. We'll be back right after this.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.D3Hoops.com.
Division III schools offer academic scholarships instead of athletic scholarships. This really puts the focus that the student athlete needs to maintain that GPA.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III. A lot of people pick schools just based on the sport and don't get that experience.
Being a Division III athlete and developing my leadership skills has definitely put my name out there and helped me get more recognition on campus, but more recognition nationwide. I did win the Jostens Trophy, which is based on leadership, academics, and then how well you do on the court.
I'm also the Schwartz Scholar of my class. Schwartz Scholarship is basically a scholarship that is given to a student who's identified as a likely leader.
And the end of the day, it won't matter how they play on the field, it will matter how they do in the classroom.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at d3hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
Division III allows you to be able to give yourself to other things. Not even just participate in them, but really get involved with them if you want to.
There's a lot of interaction. It's not just sitting back, taking notes. You're actually doing hands-on things and better preparing yourself for your major.
Choosing a Division III school, I've had the opportunity to develop my leadership skills and to be more involved on campus.
Division athletics, affords students the opportunity not only to participate in intercollegiate athletics at a competitive level, but also gives them the opportunity to, engage in the other interests in their campus and in their lives outside of that sport and outside of the academics on the campus.
And to have opportunity to have time to join clubs and being able to play basketball, it allows you to change it for the world.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Sorry for the delay there. Couldn't find the phone number of our next guest. We finally have it, and we're ready to go. So if you have any questions for us, interact with us on Twitter at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. You can also join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville or email us at Hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. That's Hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. Since we're way behind schedule, we're going to pick up the pace here a little bit. We're going to jump into the Northeast region, and joining us on the Hoopsville hotline is men's head coach at Eastern Connecticut, Coach Bill Geithner. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville.
Thank you for having me, Dave.
First and foremost, team is off to a 11-4 start, and really not off to at this point in time, as clearly we are rolling along with the season more than halfway through. But 11-4, you're on of your conference in the Little East as well. Certainly playing very good basketball. You got to be thrilled with how the team has really attacked this season.
Definitely. I think we're happy where we are, especially 5-0 in the conference, and understand we have a long way to go with 9 more conference games ahead of us, but certainly happy to be 5-0 at this point.
Again, 5-0, and with a, if I'm not mistaken, at least, 1-game lead on Rhode Island College. Coach Bob Walsh there. Western Connecticut, a 2-game lead on, along with Mass Dartmouth, and then everybody else. If you look at the schedule that you guys have had, you lose the SUNY Purchase, second game of the season. You then roll off a ton of wins, including an impressive one against Catholic. You beat Rhode Island College. You then head to Orlando, and you get a CCIW buffet, and you lose by 1 to North Central. You lose by 3 to Carthage. Of course, Carthage on the upper level of the conference right now, North Central not. You lose to Amherst early in the year, but then you back on a 3-game winning streak rolling through the conference at this point. Seems a little up and down, but at the same time, you guys certainly went out there and challenged yourselves, and you're playing well with it.
No, I agree. I think coming into this year, we felt that we had an experienced group, especially in the backcourt. So we wanted to go out and challenge ourselves. I guess the only thing, in hindsight, try to stay out of Florida. This year we were 0-2, and last year we went down to Florida and we were 0-2. So next year we are not going to Florida.
Well, okay, if you insist. There's other places we can send you to, though, Coach.
That's right. No, but I agree. I mean, the Purchase game early in the season was a great experience for our guys. Coach Cheney's got a great program there, and obviously they're having a tremendous year. And then with North Central and Carthage, I mean, neither game was a win, but we took so much experience away from those 2 games, and I think it's only made us a better team. And obviously going up and playing Coach Hickson up at Amherst is a mighty challenge, but our guys were excited for it, and I thought we hung in there and played pretty well.
Talking to Coach Bill Geithner here of Eastern Connecticut, team is, as we mentioned, 11-4 on the season, 5-0 in conference play. 3 of the 4 losses coming kind of tightly knit together with that trip to Orlando and then coming back, and of course you take on Plymouth State, beat them, and then Amherst and Coach Dave Hickson before getting back into conference play. Before we talk about your team, let's talk a little bit more about this conference. This conference every year produces somebody that everybody wants to watch. Rhode Island College over the years, Western Connecticut has certainly lived up to that expectation, even Keene State on occasions. Right now, you guys are 5-0 in the conference. Got a game lead there, 11-4 overall. Playing good basketball with that win over Rhode Island College certainly in your pocket. What's the makeup this year of the conference? So how do you look at this conference and how do you take it apart?
I think this year the conference top to bottom is good, is solid. I mean, I think last year, from a conference standpoint, it was down a little. If you go back 2 years ago, we felt certainly that we had 4 NCAA teams. We ended up getting 3, but certainly Keene State, warranted one. So I think this year, we have a lot of young talent in our conference, and I think the future is very, very bright for the Little East. This year with only 5 games into the season, I think it's going to be a battle every night. I certainly, we talk to our guys about it, and I think anyone in our conference can beat us. And I think when we play well, we have the ability to, win every game in our conference as well.
Of course, you have upcoming. You've got Keene State at home before going on the road to play Rhode Island College, and then back home against Western Connecticut. So certainly a little bit of a tough stretch here. While Keene State may not be at the top of the rankings, they're always a challenge. But of course, you got Rhode Island College and Western Connecticut, who you're battling for the top 4 leading up. So this is an important stretch for you guys coming up here.
I would agree. This is a big week. Keene State coming to our place on Tuesday, and they're young, but they have as much talent as anyone in our conference. Then obviously on Saturday when we go over to Rhode Island, and then it doesn't get any easier as we turn over to the next week, and Western comes in, and so it's a tough 10-day stretch. But I think we're excited and looking forward to the challenges.
Let's talk about the team led by Brian Salzillo. 20-plus points a game. He certainly is the key to the offense, shooting very well from outside the arc, 45%. Of course, good free throw shooter as well. Mike Aguero, 16.5 points a game, hauling in nearly 8 rebounds a game, shoots well as well. Trechon Preston, am I saying it? Trayshawn Preston, very nice. 13, really almost 14 points a game for him as well. Kind of your do it all kind of guy. He hands out the most assists on the team, also hauls in a ton of rebounds. Certainly other guys contributing, but those are the big 3 when it jumps out at you on the stat sheet.
No, I would agree, and all 3 are returners. Brian and Michael being our 2 of our seniors, and all 3 were all conference players last year. So I think going into the season, we knew they would carry a large load of the scoring, and they certainly haven't disappointed. Brian really has elevated his game, is shooting extremely well from outside the 3. Registered his 1,000th point this past game, and Michael is a 6'3", 6'4" swing man that is able to rebound and score and get out in transition, and then Trey does a little bit of everything for us, handles the ball, and we clearly rely heavily on the 3.
You live and die kind of a little bit by that 3-pointer. You guys shooting pretty decently from beyond the arc, 40%. Certainly everyone would love to be shooting that well. But if you guys are forced out of that game plan, what is the next one? I mean, I assume nobody's going to let you try and just shoot from outside.
No, I mean, clearly I think that's been a point of emphasis this year, that we have a balance. We have some young forwards that I like an awful lot. They're gaining unbelievable experience this year and getting better every day. There's going to come a point where we're going to have to rely on them. I think the nice thing the last couple games that we've played, we've had some guys that have, come off the bench, and Hugh Lindo and Leroy Hay, both had big games against UMass Dartmouth down there. And this past weekend against Southern Maine, Kevin Lamine came in and, scored 17 points for us off the bench. So I think there's, some talent on our bench, and, I like our depth. So I think clearly it's not just the 3 guys, although we do rely heavily on them.
Talking to Coach Bill Geithner here of Eastern Connecticut. Coach, this is a team who, last year 22-8, 24-6 the year before that, 22-10, 20-10. It's been a long way since the 500 teams before that. You're almost penciled in for 20 wins. It's just a matter of whether you can get to the NCAA tournament and what you can do with it there. How important is consistency with this team? How important is it to kind of get off to that good start like you did this year and then position yourself for an NCAA tournament berth?
I think clearly it's important. With so many good teams in our region, every game, the winning and losing every game is just magnified. So I think our guys have accepted that challenge, and the non-conference games that we scheduled, we knew they were going to be difficult games, but we felt that it was only going to improve our strength of schedule and help us, come Little East Conference tournament time. And our motto over the last 4 or 5 years is, come every day and get a little better individually and collectively as a team, and by middle of February, we're going to be a pretty good ball club.
Of course, you're not that far removed from the Sweet 16 run you had a couple years ago. Of course, ran into Cabrini on their way to the championship game that year. Is this a team that can make that run again? Obviously, matchups aside of what could end up being in the NCAA tournament, but is this a team that can make a deep run? Is this a team that's positioned itself nicely? Do you think it's got the potential?
I think if we continue to grow, and our forwards continue to gain experience, and obviously our senior leadership will play a big role in that. But, clearly we're excited to be at 5-0 and, feel that, we can compete on a daily basis with anybody.
Coach, appreciate you taking the time to join us. Certainly looking forward to watching your team the rest of the way. But quickly before, 2 questions. One, Northeast region in general, it's a challenge. Obviously, you played Amherst, lost by 13. You know this region pretty darn well. How do you is this the NESCACs? Is this WPIs? Who do you think's the top dog, and are they beatable?
That's a great question. I think there's so many teams that are off to a good start. I mean, you touched on a couple of them. Amherst is obviously off to another start. You have, WPI, MIT, the new MAC is playing very well with Springfield and Babson. Albertus is having a tremendous year, and I know they've, have a ton of talent. So I don't know. I think it's probably a little too early to, see where things are going to shake out. But I know the last 4 weeks are going to be very interesting, especially here in New England.
Well, thank you so much, Coach. Good luck the rest of the way. Obviously, big stretch coming up here, as we mentioned. You got Keene State, who would love to do nothing else but knock the top team in the conference off on their home floor, and then on the road against Rhode Island College in Western Connecticut. As always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you'd like to share with those who may be tuning in?
No, just, I'd like to say thank you to Dave. All that you do here with Hoopsville and D3 Hoops, just giving exposure to, student athletes that work extremely hard. So I guess my final words are just to say thank you to you, and, you do a great job.
Thank you, Coach. I appreciate the kind words. Good luck the rest of the way. Maybe we'll be talking about the Warriors come the end of the season, right?
All right. Thanks, Dave. Have a great night.
Take care. You too. Coach Bill Geithner talking to him. He was careful not to bring up the football result today. I don't know if he really, or anybody in New England would want to talk about that necessarily. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to jump into some women's basketball. Got some good teams to talk about. Concordia, Wisconsin, and Ferrum women's basketball. Certainly teams to keep an eye on. We'll tell you why coming up here on Hoopsville. You're watching Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com and the National Association of Basketball Coaches. We'll be back right after this.
Division III schools offer academic scholarships instead of athletic scholarships. This really puts the focus that the student athlete needs to maintain that GPA.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's more opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III. A lot of people pick schools just based on the sport and don't get that experience.
Being a Division III athlete and developing my leadership skills has definitely put my name out there and helped me get more recognition on campus, but more recognition nationwide. I did win the Jostens Trophy, which is based on leadership, academics, and then how well you do on the court.
I'm also the Schwartz Scholar of my class. Schwartz Scholarship is basically a scholarship that is given to a student who's identified as a likely leader.
At the end of the day, it won't matter how they play on the field, it will matter how they do in the classroom.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. At www.d3hoops.com.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Don't forget, you can interact with the show, ask us questions, ask our guest questions at Twitter at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Also on email, hoopsville at d3hoops.com. You can also join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. Lots to talk about. Fan Nathan reminding us that Texas Dallas dismantled Mary Hardin-Baylor and Concordia in a span of 3 days, dominating Mary Hardin-Baylor and beating Concordia by 46. Nathan, we certainly did spot that, and Texas Dallas will be our guest coming up in the near future. I can assure you of that. We just wanted to talk to the team that certainly was in the national scope last year, but Texas Dallas playing really good basketball down there in the South. So you know how to get a hold of us. We certainly hope you'll take advantage of that as well. Lots to cover, and we'll keep going and moving along as we'll go back to the Hoopsville hotline. And joining us from Concordia University in Wisconsin is the women's basketball coach there, and it's Stacy Brunner-Jones. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville.
Thank you, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Appreciate you taking the time to join us. The team out of the Central region looking at 14-1 to start the year. I know you've got to be thrilled with that, though. We'll get to the ramifications of that, but you're 14-1 overall, 11-1 in the conference, certainly playing good basketball and rolling along. Your only loss was Wisconsin Lutheran back in mid-December, right before Christmas.
Yes. We're pretty happy with where we are right now in the season. Obviously, with that loss with Wisconsin Lutheran, they're always our toughest rival. But we have 3 seniors, and I think that's a big part of why we are 14-1, and just couldn't be happier with their play and how the team is progressing.
Yeah, you mentioned the 3 seniors certainly playing good basketball. This is a pretty deep team, though. You've got a handful of juniors, a number of sophomores and freshmen. It seems like this is the perfect year for those sophomores and freshmen to really get a grasp of what this team's all about and keep it at this type of level for a while to come.
Hopefully, and I believe the 3 seniors are doing such a great job of just leading, on the court and off, and our sophomores have been really good for us. Sometimes we get in that sophomore slump, and they've been playing well.
Well, you're led by one senior in Katie Luth, 14.8 points a game, hauling in 7+ rebounds a game. She also hands out 2 assists a game, just in case she wasn't doing enough for you, and steals nearly 2 balls a game as well. Certainly that's a nice sign, but it's a sophomore finishing second right now on the scoring sheet at 12.8 points a game, and Megan Conan, and a freshman in Tori Rickers. Oh, I like that better. Rickers at 12.6 points a game. I mean, you talk about the seniors leading, but it's when a sophomore and a freshman are stepping up on the stat sheet that as a coach you've got to be thrilled with.
Definitely, and we kind of call them the Twin Towers. There's 6-footers, 6'1", and they play really well together. And Katie Luthi is such a tough matchup. She can play inside, she can play out. She loves to shoot the 3. She's left-handed. Has a chance to be Player of the Year, I think, if we continue to do well. So between the 3 of them, they're hard to guard.
Man, it's certainly not to take anything away from the Parsons 10 points a game, Landgraf 9 points a game, Butler's putting in 6 points a game. It's just nice to see that collection. I know for you up there, of course, we should mention Luthi, by the way, also shoots from beyond the arc pretty nicely, as well as Parsons. But this is a team that, 14-1, not getting any votes in the top 25 for D3Hoops.com right now. Sits in the conference 11-1. You have wins over Augustana. You beat La Crosse earlier in the season. What's do you think may be the determining factor with this squad? What do you think's the reason that you guys just haven't taken that step to, with just one loss to garner is the word I'm looking for, some national attention?
Well, that it's a little frustrating, but, we don't really pay too much attention to it. I understand our conference isn't a super strong conference at this point. I do trust that all of our coaches are trying to make the conference better. But, really we just have to keep playing hard. I think our non-conference schedule was tough. That game against La Crosse was one of the best games I've been a part of as a coach. And I think we just got to keep proving it by winning, and hopefully that will happen.
Certainly the conference, as you point out, is sometimes of a challenge. You're sitting on top right now, 2-game lead on Wisconsin Lutheran, who was basically your arch nemesis last year, to say the least, and knocking you guys out of the conference tournament or late in the season. Alverno is in the conversation, and Milwaukee Engineering, all of those teams with more than 10 wins, or 10 wins or more, I should say. And of course, there's Aurora and Edgewood as well. This is a conference, as you point out, probably doesn't get all the attention. Granted, changing the name this year maybe got some extra attention for you. What do you think needs to happen for you guys to break that stereotype, I guess? Does a team from this conference have to make a really deep run in the NCAA tournament?
I believe so. Lutheran and us have both won one game in the NCAA tournament, and I think that is going to be the next level. We need to keep pushing and trying to get to the next round and the next round, and obviously our bottom schools need to continue to improve their programs. And the biggest thing is scheduling tough non-conference, schedule, which Lutheran did, and I believe we did, and hopefully I think the more and more we continue to win and put up good numbers, I think the respect will come.
The schedule ahead for you guys features, after the win over Rockford, you're going to have on the road at Edgewood, then back home against non-Division III Concordia, Nebraska. Of course, that one being at home is smart. We'll talk about the reason for that in just a minute, followed by a second game next weekend, and then you're at home against Wisconsin Lutheran. That all rounds out January. Certainly conference play is the most important. Those games against Edgewood and Wisconsin Lutheran, I'm sure that the team is focused on, especially that one on the 29th.
Definitely, and obviously I'm sure you're going to talk about the CIT,
Yep.
But that's the hardest thing as a coach in my position here at Concordia, trying to keep us focused and just one game at a time. And everyone here on campus is talking about CIT, but we're talking about Edgewood College on Tuesday. And one thing I really appreciate and love about our team is just the worker attitude, and we, have a scout and do film on every team that we play, no matter what their record is, and so we just keep plugging away one day at a time.
Yeah, you mentioned the CIT, and that's what I was kind of transitioning into. You got a conference game fouled by the CIT, and then get back into conference play. And of course, in our world, it's at an interesting point of the year. Late January, when everybody's neck deep in conference action, you guys will take a side to that, play in the 63rd annual, hosting it at your place. Of course, it's a men's and women's tournament, we should point out as well, taking place this weekend. Pretty big tournament in the sense of how long it's gone, but at the same time, this is one of those, all Concordia events, and I should point out from others, Concordia, Michigan, Concordia, Illinois, Concordia, Nebraska, Concordia, Wisconsin. How hard is it as a coach to gear your team up for something that's very different in the realm of this type of year? I mean, this is the kind of thing that usually is, early to mid-season.
Well, I have to say, when I got the job 10 years ago, I hated it. I thought it was horrible and a horrible time of the year, but I've grown to love it. It is a wonderful tournament, really, really good talent, and just all four schools bring their band, bring their cheer teams, their dance teams. It's packed every game. So it's a great atmosphere, a great tournament, and like you said, I think it's the second longest running tournament besides the NIT. So it's got a lot of history, and we're excited for it when it gets here.
Of course, this has been around for a long time, as we mentioned, 63 years. Of course, it's played in January. It's a little bit different, as we mentioned, for everybody else, but it's a wide-ranging tournament, and so you get to see a wide-ranging amount of teams. And, of course, hosting it probably takes a little bit less pressure off your team, but not less pressure off you as a coach. But though I know you guys are well supported by the infrastructure at Concordia to pull this off. So while you're looking forward to it, how do you keep the players kind of in focus that hey, we do have this game on Wednesday we got to take care of before we play 2 games on Saturday. Then we got to get back in action next Wednesday.
Right. Well, we give the CIT itinerary last week after we played a game, so then we could talk about it for about 15 minutes and then be done with it. And, you know, it's like you said, it's really 3-4 days of full CIT. So it really helps for me that we have these 3 seniors that just keep us focused. And when we do play Concordia, Nebraska, which is an NAIA team, and they're ranked in the top 10, it's going to be a tough challenge, and we hope to be 15-1 going into that game.
I was going to say that's the other interesting dichotomy here is you're going to be playing schools that aren't necessarily Division III opponents. So you're going to play somebody who has a different mentality, and they're of course got the same scenario. They're not playing opponents that are NAIA, as you point out, and going into, you know, kind of taking a step out of things. How do you prepare in that sense? Is this one of those where technically the game doesn't count in the eyes of the Division III world, at least for, you know, at-large bids or seeding? Is it one of those where you just want to play your best and the win or the loss is not as big a deal to you? Or is this one of those where, you know what, we're going to go win this thing even if it maybe, you know, takes a little bit extra from us before we get back into conference play?
I think it depends on each coach in the tournament. I take the approach of, you know, it's just another game. Well aware that especially the freshmen and sophomores are probably, you know, super excited and that kind of thing. But we just, if we lose, you kind of take it like that. As, you know, it was just a game. It didn't count. We got to move on. If you win it, which we've won it once since I've been here in 2007, and then you love it, and it's a lot of fun. Like I said, every president is here. All the professors. It is a really, really unique, cool event that we're lucky to have. It's just like you said, in January it's a little bit tough in the schedule, but if you lose, you move on, and if you win, you celebrate it for a night, and then you go to the next conference game. Has
there been any talk about moving this to another time of the year?
Yes, mostly by me. We would love to do it in November, but then, you know, they say there's not as many students on campus if we do it Thanksgiving. Yeah. Some of the D3 coaches say that then the NAIA schools would have an advantage because they've played a lot more games, which I argue they already have an advantage when they're given scholarships. But
True.
I would say in every coaches meeting that I've been in 10 years, it is brought up, but it hasn't changed.
Interesting. Well, certainly looking forward to seeing how this team does, not only in the season, but certainly in this event. It's certainly one of the more unique things in college basketball, and I'm going to support and celebrate that, to be sure, because it's fun to watch how everybody kind of interacts in those games. Of course, you'll take on Concordia, Nebraska, as you point out. I'm sure you love that draw when everybody worked it out on the 24th, and then on the Friday you'll play either the winner if you win or the loser if you lose. And, of course, right back into play against Wisconsin Lutheran. I do have to ask, though, what's it like with the conference? It's, you know, the NACC, certainly this isn't new to them. They understand you got to give you guys the weekend here, but at the same time, that usually presents some other scheduling challenges for you guys.
Well, since Concordia Chicago is also in the NACC,
right,
they schedule that game during that weekend of CIT. So,
okay.
So they do a good job of making it not as uncomfortable for the rest of the teams in a conference.
Yeah, you did play Concordia Chicago back on the 23rd of November, of course. That was like the random game, and then a week later played another conference opponent. So certainly they work it out to make it work for you two teams, to say the least. Hey, Coach, appreciate you taking the time to join us. Certainly going to look forward to seeing how this all works out for you guys, not only this weekend. If anybody's in the Wisconsin area, definitely check this tournament out. It could be some good basketball. As you point out, Concordia, Nebraska is a solid team as well. And, of course, looking forward to seeing how the conference works out for yourselves as well. Big game against Wisconsin Lutheran looming in over a week, but we won't get you too distracted on that, Coach. As always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuning in?
Well, I just want to thank you, Dave, for having us on your show today. It's great to have this recognition, and just for all the NACC coaches, I just wish them the best of luck, and all of our fans for thinking and supporting us, and thanks for all you do for Division III.
Well, thank you, Coach. Appreciate it. Especially makes it easier when coaches can come on the show and chat with us. Good luck the rest of the way, and we'll talk to you soon, I'm sure.
Sounds great. Thank you.
All right, take care. Coach Stacy Brunner-Jones joining us here on Hoopsville. Really interesting tournament, the Concordia Invitational Tournament, being hosted by Concordia, Wisconsin this year, 63rd version of it. Again, they'll take on Concordia, Nebraska, and of course Concordia, Chicago, and Concordia, Michigan will take each other on in the other game. The winners will face each other on Friday. The losers will face each other on Friday Saturday, I should say, before they get back into action against Wisconsin Lutheran. We're going to take another break. Don't forget, Twitter is a way you can interact with us, at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Don't forget on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville as well. Of course, also on email, hoopsville@d3hoops.com. We'll take another break. When we come back, we'll stay in the theme of women's basketball, jump down to Virginia, and talk to Ferrum women's basketball coach Brian Harvey about the team's first loss today and the makeup of the USA South as it has ever changed over the years. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com and the National Association of Basketball Coaches. We'll be back right after this.
Division III schools offer academic scholarships instead of athletic scholarships. This really puts the focus that the student athlete needs to maintain that GPA.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's more opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III. A lot of people pick schools just based on the sport and don't get that experience.
Being a Division III athlete and developing my leadership skills has definitely put my name out there and helped me get more recognition on campus, but more recognition nationwide. I did win the Jostens Trophy, which is based on leadership, academics, and then how well you do on the court.
I'm also the Schwartz Scholar of my class. Schwartz Scholarship is basically a scholarship that is given to a student who's identified as a likely leader.
At the end of the day, it won't matter how they play on the field, it will matter how they do in the classroom.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying your Sunday evening. Lots to talk about in the world of Division III. Don't forget, 6 weeks left in the regular season / conference tournament before we're talking 6 weeks from tonight about who's in and who may be out of the NCAA tournaments on both the men's and women's sides. In a couple of weeks, we'll be talking about the regional rankings finally coming out and getting a lay of the land of how everything's working out. Don't forget, we have a special marathon show coming up on January 30th. There will be 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. that day, all part of the Hoopsville fundraising project. We can get more information on D3Hoops.com, on D3Hoopsville.com, via our blog as well, of course, on Twitter. That's at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville, or Facebook.com/Hoopsville, and of course, email Hoopsville@D3Hoops.com. All the ways you can interact with us, but also learn more about the Hoopsville project, which we'll talk about a little bit more later in the program as well. I want to thank everybody so far in its first week. We have hit 30% of our goal and are certainly looking to go further than that. So please don't hesitate to be a part of the program, as it were. Let's go back to the Hoopsville hotline. We're going to stay with women's basketball, jump into the South region and talk Ferrum women's basketball. And Coach Brian Harvey joins us on the Hoopsville hotline. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Appreciate you taking the time on what ended up being a tough day, losing to LaGrange 69-66. The game, of course, at home. A tough one that went into overtime. LaGrange beating you 13-10 in the OT. Certainly not the way you want to take your first loss of the season. Not that you want to lose a game, period, but a hard-fought battle nonetheless.
It was, and give LaGrange credit. They hit some big shots down the stretch, hit a big three to send it to overtime, and just executed. They executed their game plan all day. We didn't shoot the ball as low as we normally shoot the ball. Had some good looks and just didn't go down. And sometimes that happens, and we just need to do a better job on the boards. They had 21 offensive rebounds, and that hurt us today. And we just had a tough night shooting, but that's the way it goes. And got a big game on Wednesday. We've got to regroup and get ready tomorrow and Tuesday, and hopefully we'll be ready for Wednesday.
I was going to say, you guys both shot identical 35.8% marks from the floor. Of course, they shot 52.9 from beyond the arc, which they had to because they had to make up for the 48% from the free throw line in the game. Of course, it's the first loss, as I mentioned. You're ranked 20th in the country. This is a USA South that has certainly gotten plenty of attention over the years with yourself, Piedmont, and Maryville making the NCAA tournament last year. Of course, 10-0 entering the game. You knew the conference could come up and trip you at some point in time. Did you feel it could be a LaGrange squad who's 9-6, or was it more you thought a Piedmont or even a Maryville team would be the biggest threat?
Well, watching LaGrange on film, I think they're very well coached, and they really stretched the floor. They knocked down the open three, and we had everybody has them, so it's part of basketball. We had a key injury yesterday. One of our best players, Colleen Keller, went down with a concussion and wasn't able to play today, and just probably didn't handle things as well without her on the floor. She's a leader for us and just playing exceptional basketball right now, shooting 68% from the floor and 95% from the free throw line, and basically averaging a double-double. So when you take that out of the equation, somebody has to step up and play well, and we just didn't get it done today.
Certainly a tough one when you lose a key member of the roster. This is a roster that certainly is experienced, to say the least, but you have a handful of seniors on the squad. I think 4 of them, if my math is quick. Got a number of juniors, a number of sophomores. So you're certainly top heavy in the sense of experience, and that's certainly not a bad thing in any shape and form. But when you look at this squad, what's the strength?
We've got some kids that have played big basketball games. 4 seniors that have won a lot of basketball games and made it to the NCAA tournament the last 2 years, and they're all playing good basketball. So I feel like we got a lot of depth and a pretty balanced scoring. We've got 5 kids that average right at double digits, and I think that's a big strength of ours. And, with the injury we had yesterday, that's, we thought with our depth that we would be able to maybe overcome that, but didn't happen that way today. But we have a big game coming up on Wednesday. Greensboro's a very good team, and then we got Piedmont Friday on the road, and Piedmont's a very good team as well. So hopefully we'll show some character and respond by playing better Wednesday and Friday.
Yeah, you talk about the team. Jacoa Harrison leading the team, 13.3 points a game, but it's by 0.2 points over Color, who you mentioned was out today. 12 points plus from Katie Kipps, Shea Smith, 11.5 points a game, 8 points from Barika Burwell. You're getting a lot of scoring from a lot of different people, and no one really stands out besides Color, who obviously holds in 9.1 rebounds as well. So you're getting a lot of contributions from a lot of different players, and that's got to make it tough for opponents to kind of match up with you guys.
Well, that's what we hope. I've had teams in the past where you have one kid that scores a lot or 2 kids that score a lot, and I think sometimes defensively teams can take that away from you. And I think by having balance, I think on any given night we have 6 or 7 kids that can score double digits, and I do think that makes it hard to defend us.
Let's talk about the conference a little bit. Kind of a split conference this year, only because it's so big. Let's see, 13 teams in the conference. What's it been like with this, adjustment? Christopher Newport out, which may be a saving grace in some cases, depending on how you look at it. So it's not one more team who's battling it out, but at the same time, it's a deeper conference, especially on the women's side of things. How have you guys adjusted to the scheduling? How have you adjusted to this new look USA South?
Well, it's tough, to be honest with you. We have different divisions, South and North, and 8 teams in one division, 5 in the other. It's a little bit of a challenge, but we just got to make the most of it. I think the hard part is we're playing back-to-back games because of travel every weekend. So you play a lot of Friday, Saturdays, or Saturday, Sundays. And as far as being able to prepare for the second of back-to-back games is a challenge, and it's something that it's going to take some time to figure out. And it's just it's the way our league is. So we have to adjust, and hopefully come tournament time when we play Friday, Saturday, back-to-back games, we'll be able to handle that a little bit better than somebody that's not doing that during the season.
When you look at this conference, you guys sit at 13 and Maryville, I should say, 13-3, Piedmont 11-4, yourselves 10-1. Of course, there's also Huntington and LaGrange on the doorstep of 10 wins themselves, along with Greensboro. This is a conference that, as we mentioned, got 3 teams into the NCAA tournament, but Christopher Newport has left for the CAC. Is this conference capable of getting 2 or 3 teams in the NCAA tournament, making that kind of run that Christopher Newport has been known to make in the last few years?
Well, I hope so. I think Maryville's a very good basketball team, and they played Emory to a 1-point game. Piedmont played Emory to a 3-point game, and we know how good Emory is. So I definitely feel like we have some good teams in our conference, and we got a lot of basketball left to play in the next 6 weeks. But hopefully, at the end of the 6 weeks, we'll have at least 2 teams that I think are NCAA tournament caliber teams.
And of course, with a bigger depth than the men's side, the whole conference, the whole schedule with the men, comparably is a little bit different. What's it like to basically be playing a completely different schedule and different world than the men's team is at Ferrum?
Well, it's a challenge a little bit. We play doubleheaders with our men, and with the men having fewer teams, they usually don't want to start conference play until January because they don't need to, but that forces us to start in January. And for me, we played 2 games before Christmas, which is, most teams 12, 13 games. We had played 2 before Christmas, and you come back after Christmas and we have 23 games in, a 2-month stretch. So it's a little bit of a challenge, but like I said, we all have challenges, and we've got to. Everybody has to figure out how to handle those challenges, and I think the teams that handle that the right way and do things the right way and just make the most of the situation, I think those are the teams that are successful. So that's what we're trying to do.
Well, that's what gets me to my next observation. You have 11 games in the month of February alone. You play weekend Wednesday, weekend Wednesday, weekend Wednesday, weekend. The entire way through this, it certainly is going to be anything but challenging and can really wear a team out. How are you able to prepare your team for what is going to be a pretty challenging run here, especially with a moment where you're at home for one weekend, then on the road for the Wednesday, and then back home for a weekend?
Well, it's a grind, and I think as a coach you got to be creative. An example: we played yesterday. Had a tough overtime game today, then we play again on Wednesday. So you got to decide how you're going to use your days off. I think you got to decide how long you're going to practice. We might have to shorten practices to an hour and a half, hour and 15 minutes. And I think the big thing is you got to prepare your kids well, and then you got to keep them fresh. I think if you try to do too much and you wear them down, I think that affects you in the end. And we just got to be creative with that and kind of gauge where our kids are from week to week and then adjust accordingly.
I mean, you had one game in November, took a couple weeks off, then played a handful of games in December, just 3 of them. The rest of the schedule has all been in 2014. Of course, the 11 games in February doesn't even talk about whether you have conference games to play or tournament games, which we would assume you would, so that could be another couple of games as well. Have you ever in your scheduling had a conference like that that's just fascinating?
No, I haven't. And since I've been here, we've had some challenges with the schedule, and we've had to figure different things out. But I've never had one where it's this many games in this short amount of time. But I think our kids. I think we counted them up 56 practices in 2 games. And I think they were tired of practicing. They were ready to see somebody else. So, now we got a chance to see somebody else and probably not a lot of time to practice. So we just do the best we can and see how it goes.
Very good. Well, Coach, I appreciate you taking the time to join us. Certainly going to be interesting to watch Ferrum moving forward, as it were. The Panthers 10-1 now, 4-1 in conference play. Of course, just a craziness of a schedule ahead, and I can only imagine what that's going to be like. I'll be watching it with very interested eyes. As always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuning in?
No, just like we said last year when you had us on the show, we really appreciate what you guys do for Division III basketball. We appreciate you taking the time to have us on here and give Ferrum a chance to just tell you a little bit about who we are and what we do, and that means a lot to us, so we appreciate everything.
No problem, Coach. I appreciate you coming on last minute for us as well. Good luck the rest of the season. We'll talk soon.
Okay, thank you very much.
Take care. Coach Brian Harvey joining us here out of the South Region, number 20. Ferrum 10-1 on the season, as we mentioned, taking their first loss today against LaGrange. It is going to be a fascinating run the rest of the way. Again, 11 games in February, but if you count the next 3, that's 14 games in the next 6 weeks of basketball. It's not for the faint of heart, to say the least, for the Panthers, but we will be interested in seeing them move on. Got a reminder, by the way, speaking of women's basketball, we got a great matchup coming up in the Northeast. A battle for first place in the NEWMAC. Wellesley will be taking on Coast Guard this Wednesday night. That is a big game. You remember Coast Guard beat Wellesley earlier this season. Going to be fun to watch that one if you have the opportunity to. Certainly tune in. Should be a good game in the NEWMAC. There's a lot of good games coming up across the board in both men's and women's basketball. Don't forget to go to the new redesigned and revamped D3Hoops.com to keep track of your favorite teams, your favorite conference, and everybody else in Division III men's and women's basketball. It is a wonderful site. It got revamped. So did D3 Hoopsville. D3 Hoopsville's website, D3Hoopsville.com, got revamped as well. We'll hope you'll take advantage of checking out the sites and so on and so forth. Plenty of good stuff going on in the Division III world, and we got it all covered for you at D3Hoops.com. We're going to take another break, and we're going to jump from Virginia to Illinois, and just barely Illinois. You could be saying Ohio. We're going to jump into men's basketball and talk Augustana basketball with Augustana head coach about his team's 14-2 mark and where they sit in the top 25 and how they are doing so far this season. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com and the National Association of Basketball Coaches. We'll be back right after this.
Division III schools offer academic scholarships instead of athletic scholarships. This really puts the focus that the student athlete needs to maintain that GPA.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's more opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III. A lot of people pick schools just based on the sport and don't get that experience.
Being a Division III athlete and developing my leadership skills has definitely put my name out there and helped me get more recognition on campus, but more recognition nationwide. I did win the Jostens Trophy, which is based on leadership, academics, and then how well you do on the court.
I'm also the Schwartz Scholar of my class. Schwartz Scholarship is basically a scholarship that is given to a student who's identified as a likely leader.
At the end of the day, it won't matter how they play on the field, it will matter how they do in the classroom.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.D3Hoops.com.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Black screen, but now you can see us. Hope you're having a good Sunday evening. We got lots to talk about in Division III. Appreciate you taking the time to join us here on Hoopsville. If you'd like to, on Twitter at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Don't forget, email hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. Facebook.com/Hoopsville as well. By the way, back to our good friend Mark giving us some tidbits here. Back to that Wellesley Coast Guard game. You remember we talked to Wellesley women's basketball last Sunday. They lost that game, as we mentioned, to Coast Guard. They'll have that rematch on Wednesday. Wellesley has won 10 in a row since that point in time, so that should be a great game. Let's jump back into men's basketball, and we'll jump to the Midwest Central region. We call in the Central a little bit more now because by next year you better get used to the name. The Midwest title will disappear in men's basketball and be officially called the Central region, like almost every other sport in Division III. And so we'll talk, go to the Hoopsville hotline, and joining us there, number 13 team in the country, the Augustana Vikings, who are 14-2 overall. And Coach Gray Giamatti joins us here on here on Hoopsville. Coach, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Good to be on with you.
Well, I appreciate you taking the. I know it's been a busy CCIW schedule. I also know you've been a little distracted as well with other personal reasons, but I appreciate you taking the time nonetheless.
Good to be on with you.
Team 14-2 overall, 4-1 in conference play. Your 2 losses to Platteville the second game of the season and to Wheaton last Saturday. You've righted the ship since then, rolling through North Central by 12 on Wednesday before beating North Park handily by 15 today. This is a Viking squad. I mean, it's every CCIW squad, as you know, is always on everybody's radar. I think your squad was certainly on the radar this year, but are you maybe playing above many people's expectations?
Well, we were not in anybody's preseason top 25. We were picked to finish third in our conference, and so I don't think there were great expectations. But internally, we knew that we had played 6 freshmen and a number of sophomores last year, and won 19 games. Felt like we should have been in the NCAA tournament. And then we took a great trip this summer, went to South America, played some great competition in Brazil, and then we began the season with an exhibition game in front of 15,000 people at the University of Iowa, where we really played the Hawkeyes in a terrific battle. So, we aren't, again, internally, I think we felt like we had a chance to be very good, and but certainly I think some folks probably feel like we're exceeding expectations.
Yeah, this is a team that not that long ago was hosting a Sweet 16 Elite 8 opportunity to go on to the Final Four in Salem. Of course, you're playing in a tough conference, as always represents well. What's been the road back from that 27-4 season where you were on the doorstep?
I think just the continued efforts in recruitment and developing the players that we had. We had a great group that year, and a number of them were upperclassmen and seniors. And last year's recruiting class was really key for us. And now those guys have matured, and we've got a group of sophomores and juniors that have begun to understand the expectations at Augustana and the culture that we provide. And so we're right back there again for, I think, the 14th season in a row with a chance to be at the very top of the CCIW and in contention for postseason play.
Yeah, the CCIW, of course, is a who's who of just crazy. Illinois Wesleyan goes almost the entire way last year before losing a game in the last game of the season. This year, you guys are the ones that knock them off early. Of course, you're in a 3-way tie now with Carthage, who has reemerged as a power in the CCIW. Wheaton is a game back at 3-2. The interesting fact is all of you have basically beaten each other, the 4 of you, Augustana, Illinois Wesleyan, Carthage, and Wheaton. And then there's Elmhurst, North Central, Milliken, and North Park. Of course, this Wheaton squad, if my website would work a little bit faster, I can double-check the loss I wanted to check, which was to Carthage and Illinois Wesleyan this past week. This is almost a weird situation in the CCIW that at this point in time, it's the top and the bottom. There's no crossover as much this year, even though Elmhurst is also sitting at 10-6 and North Central sitting at 9-7. What do you make up of the CCIW this year?
Well, I think, first of all, Dave, I love when people talk about the league in general, but know this, since 2003, we've won 8 conference championships. We've won 5 of the regular season titles and 3 of the tournament titles. So, in the last decade, we've bested the conference and been the standard bearer at Augustana. But this year in the league, I don't think it's I think what you'll see is the same thing you're seeing around the country. Wisconsin's undefeated, ranked in the top 5, and loses 3 games in a row within the league. When you get into league play, Iowa State goes to Texas and gets beat. I think you're going to see some of what you're referring to. So, and I know you say with great respect that the bottom teams being the top teams. I think there'll be an awful lot of crossover yet. We had our hands full with North Park last night, and they're not going to win our league, but I think they'll beat somebody that's in that top half. And just 5 games into a conference season that's 14 games long, I think there's so much to play out. It's very much a marathon, and I think there'll be some teams that won't be contenders that will factor into the league title with a win somewhere along the way.
Of course, I'm used to this, I guess, more carnage, Coach.
Yeah, well,
it's a little more cut and dry this year. It's a little weird.
Early on it is. Early on it is. But I think I want to say Carthage was picked. Well, I hate to say it, maybe fifth in our league in the coaches poll, and here they are.
Yeah.
As co-leaders right now. But there's a lot that will shake out, just like in every league race.
Yeah.
And but it'll be a good one. And I think it's our league in the several preseason polls. I think there were 3 teams in the top 10, and we weren't one of them.
Yeah.
And so the league is certainly as strong as it ever has been.
Of course, North Central represented well last year, getting all the way to the Final Four before losing a heartbreaker. And, of course, Illinois Wesleyan has represented well. You guys, as you point out, of course, I was at your gym that year. You almost made it to Salem a couple years back, that 27-4 year.
Right.
But I think what jumps out at me about your team, Coach, this is a young squad. You have 1 senior. You have 4 juniors, if my math does it right. The rest is sophomores of those who are playing. What I guess stands out to me is you're getting a lot of return from that investment right now. And wow, this lineup is got to have those in the CCIW and the Central Region a little bit nervous, because it's not like this is ending anytime soon, at least on paper.
Right. Yeah, and listen, the 1 senior you referred to will be back next year. He will use a medical hardship, Kevin Schlitter.
Just to make everybody even angrier, Coach.
Right. We do not have a senior, which is really unusual for a number of reasons. But we don't have a senior in the lineup, and you're right. We start 3 sophomores. But you used a good term, the investment that we made in playing so many of those young guys last year. And I think everybody, me included, thought we could really take our lumps, and we ended up winning 19. And then we, as I said, we invested in a great foreign tour this summer, a great exhibition game at the University of Iowa, and those guys have really grown up. And so, a lot of people are scratching their heads saying, "Man, where'd that guy come from?" Hunter Hill's a great example, our little point guard. Well, Hunter Hill, he took on the Iowa Hawkeyes, and he took on the Flamenco, the one of the best 22 and under clubs in the world, and didn't flinch. And so now, as we go into conference play, we're a little bit more seasoned, I think, than what you might think when you look at the roster and see all those sophomores and juniors.
Well, and it's not like you have anybody who is just jumping out on a stat sheet. You have 1 guy in double figures in Hunter Hill.
Yeah,
you have 3 guys with 9 points or nearly 10 with Tavion Johnson and Delius Jurgutis?
Jurgutis.
I like
Lithuanian, yeah.
No, nice. So that's an easy Lithuanian name in the grand scheme of things. I've had a few other challenging ones. Ben Ryan with 9.3 points a game. Then you get, and those are all sophomores. You don't even get to your next upperclassman in the scoring column until you get to Nick Hopfner at 8.1 points a game, and then they're getting 8 points out of Schlitter, who technically isn't that senior. That's, I think, what really jumps out at me is not only do you just not have anybody who jumps off the page stat sheet-wise, which tells me you're extremely well-rounded and willing to go to any target on offense, but it's being led by sophomores.
Yeah, it is an interesting statistical group that we've got. When you only have 1 guy in double figures, I don't remember having a team where you only have 1 guy in double figures, and yet, as you said, there's 5 or 6 guys that are just, around 7, 8, 9 points. And I do think that's a strength of this team, is that we're very balanced, and we've had a number of different guys lead us in scoring. There's not really 1 guy that you can key in on, and if you shut this guy down, we're going to falter. So I think a strength of our team is balance, and as you said, most of the punch is coming from guys that are just in their 2nd year of college basketball.
Well, and more of this scares you even more when you start diving into these stats. You're going 10 deep almost every night. The one time you didn't, you went 9 deep. 52% from beyond the arc for Hill. 51% from beyond the arc in Roth. 32%, just in case you want to try and double up those guys, in Jurgutis. That's from beyond the arc. You're shooting 51% from the floor as a team, 43% from beyond the arc. You're a 74% free throw shooter, which in this day and age is a good percentage for a team. Out-rebounding your opponents by nearly 10, outscoring your opponents by 15. You're holding on to the ball decently. There's nothing on the stat sheet that doesn't tell me I'm not looking at seniors and juniors.
Right, and I think those are interesting numbers, and I think our program and much of our success in the past has been predicated on playing great defense and really rebounding the ball. And this year we have a team that's doing those things well, certainly, but the statistics show that we've got a group of guys that can make shots at a high percentage. So we're getting good shots, and we have good shooters taking those shots, and so the numbers, have really been exceptional. And I don't know that it'll continue that way. If as you get into these league games and everybody knows one another so well, and the games kind of slow down, it's tougher to get good shots. But certainly at this point, we've got a lot of guys really shooting the ball, and it's interesting. The one veteran statistic that we are not as pleased with is the number of turnovers we've had. And, again, your reference to the lack of experience, I think, may be part of that. But every other statistic would suggest that it's a seasoned group. And again, like I said, we've taken advantage of that NCAA rule that allows you to travel every 3 years internationally. We've been to Asia a couple times, in Europe and South America. We've, I think, kind of been somewhat of a pioneer in that front. And we feel like it's an extra season. You get those 10 days of practice in the summer, and we've found great competition when we've traveled internationally. So that really is like an extra season to help guys mature.
Well, interestingly enough, the last time you went on international travel, if I'm not mistaken, was a year you went 27-4. The time before that, you were 23-6. There seems to be a cyclical thing for you guys in that term. Of course, you have Milliken ahead on Wednesday before Elmhurst on the road on Saturday. Then you play 2 home games to finish January and start February against North Central and Wheaton. So certainly the bulk of your tough schedule is still to come in conference action. Let me quickly get an idea. I mean, obviously the CCIW we've talked about. You guys, Illinois Wesleyan, Carthage, are leading the way with Elmhurst, or Wheaton, Elmhurst, North Central, Milliken, North Park behind. Give me a sense, though, on the Midwest region, the Central region. You played Chicago to start the season, Wisconsin, Platteville, who will be in your region next year. You actually then went to Platteville, interestingly enough, and played St. Olaf and Simpson. You certainly dabbled within the region. You went and played lacrosse. You played Oshkosh, got those wins before getting into conference play. How do you see this region shaping up this year?
Well, it's interesting. We have a very difficult time scheduling within our region. I think there are an awful lot of teams that, as conferences have realigned, there are several conferences that just don't have as many non-conference games to schedule.
Yeah.
And people aren't real fired up to play somebody that they don't think they can beat. So we've actually had to go west, and obviously our geographic location, we're almost on the border of what so far has been the western region.
You're pretty much on the border.
Yes, absolutely, we are. And so we go that way a little bit more. But, lacrosse, I think, having an outstanding year. Platteville is very good. Chicago was solid. And then, a lot of teams we've played are having great years. Central of Iowa is having a great year. Loris in Dubuque is having a great year. St. Olaf is having a great year. And I saw recently, I think, in the numerical, there's of course the subjective rankings where we're 13, but numerically, I think in the Massey rankings, we've been in the top 5 here the last couple of weeks, and our strength of schedule is really exceptional. So we've played a number of teams that are going to have a great year. McMurray is having a good year. So I don't have a great sense of I haven't seen Stevens Point and some of the teams like that, but traditionally, and again, you have probably a better handle on that than most folks. The Midwest, I think, is going to have an outstanding representative come out of here before it's said and done. I haven't seen Wash yet. I think 3 times since I've been at Augustana, we've played the team that went on to win the national championship and felt like our game, may have been the national championship. Wash U beat us, I think, twice on their way to winning it. Of course, St. Thomas, as you mentioned a couple of years ago. So I'm sure the Midwest is as strong as it always is.
Oh, yeah. No, certainly looking forward to the rest of the way. By the way, you are part of our NABC Coaches Quarter. I forgot to mention that to you. So if you don't mind, though, we have a little fun with the coaches when we have them on the segment, asking them a few questions regarding themselves as coaches, or how people those close to you perceive you as a coach. If you don't mind, if we can just partake in a few questions.
You bet.
Awesome. Of course, the Coaches Corner presented by the National Association of Basketball Coaches. Appreciate their support, as we always get from them. First and foremost, kind of a hybrid question. What's your favorite thing about coaching, or what is the best part about coaching in Division III?
Well, it's the relationships. It's the the great interaction you get with such high quality young people, and certainly in Division III, the young men that you're interacting with are playing because they love the game. Typically, we found they've come from great families. They're highly motivated students, and I've been at Augustana long enough, and I've coached long enough for 30 plus years to have established just great, long-lasting relationships. I keep a file in my drawer. It says why I coach, and it's stuffed full of letters and emails and cards from former players talking about the influence and experience they've had. So that's an easy one. Those relationships with the players certainly is the best part of my job.
What would be your biggest pet peeve as a coach?
Boy, that's a good one. I think in Division III, we should probably establish some more comprehensive guidelines for recruiting. I think, what I found when I was at Division I, the recruiting rules are so well spelled out, and the calendar is so clear. And in Division III, what I found is that you can work 365 days a year.
Yeah.
And I think, especially for young coaches with families, I always kind of feel bad. Sometimes I see all these coaches out. I know they've got young families. I used to take my little guys with me recruiting all the time. Now they're grown, but I think we should probably have a calendar that keeps people with their families more often.
Interesting. Okay, I've heard that from a few coaches. What rule or nuance of the game do you love?
Do I loathe?
No, love. We'll get to the loathe part in a second, but what rule or nuance of the game do you really love?
Well, I think that I'm attesting to my age and experience here, but when the three-point line came in, that was just a terrific addition and made the game, I think, much more exciting, much more open. Really put the value of skill development back into the game, and I think that continues to be the case.
Talking to Coach Gray Giovanni here on the NABC Coaches Corner. Of course, Augustana 14-2, ranked 13th in the top 25 of D3Hoops.com. Coach, what rule would you like to see changed or actually removed from the game? One of the two.
Boy, this has been a really interesting year with the block charge, basically elimination of the charge call for all practical purposes. I think the effort to put the arc in last year was a good one. It should have gone to the NBA 1 foot further out from where it is. I don't think it really is helping us as much as it could. So I think moving that arc might be a good thing. Block charge will always be the toughest, call to make, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. So you're known to work an official or two during a game. I've seen it in action. You've got some skills, though sometimes the refs don't appreciate them. So I got to ask you, though, what can you say to a ref, if there is anything you can say to a ref that gets your point across but actually does not earn you a technical? Have you figured out what you can do?
Yeah, I would. Let me say that I'll bet you I've had fewer technicals. I've had one technical in the last 5 years. So let me just go on.
That's impressive, Coach.
I certainly know what level you can go up to, okay? And I would say that a question asked of an official is always better received than a statement made to them. So I think you can ask an official just about anything. You certainly have to be careful what you say to them. I'll leave it at that.
As long as your voice goes up at the end and sounds like a question, then.
Yeah, exactly.
I actually heard
is certainly a critical element. For sure.
I heard somebody the other day reference talking to an official, or as an official hearing, if it's a question, I'm listening. If it's a statement, I'm ignoring you.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Interesting. What does your wife say when she watches you on the bench? What would she like to see you change?
She's always, I think, would love for me to be sensitive with the language that is used, and I agree with her. I think there's no reason that language shouldn't be a PG at worst, and certainly that's a good element that my wife continues to to remind me of.
I like how you chose your words wisely about choosing your words wisely. Right. Same question, but from your assistant coach's point of view.
Yeah, I'm going to answer that with I can't imagine a better staff in America. Tom Jesse has been with me 15 years, and when I took the job, I left a major college head coaching position, and they said, we really want you to keep this guy for 1 year. And so 15 years later, Tom, certainly the dean of the assistant coaches in our conference, he's turned down a number of Division III head coaching jobs to stay just because I treat him so well. But and then Dallas Dua is one of the great teachers of the game, a renowned high school coach in Iowa. Alex Washington, former player for us on some of our great teams at Augustana. Our staff has just been tremendous. And, you mentioned, Dave, I was really up to my ears in it last week. My father, who was one of the great coaches in the history of Illinois, 674 wins when he retired. We lost him to a battle with pancreatic cancer, and so the day we played Wheaton, my father passed away, and the day we played North Central, we buried him, and I gave the eulogy. So two of the toughest days that I've ever coached. Mm-hmm. But boy, he was a guy that I come back to the first question you asked. The relationships that you develop with those players is so critical, and he believed that you could help young people develop into better people, better husbands, better fathers. And, we've got a staff that really buys into that, and that's a big part of our program.
Wrapping things up here with Coach Gray from Augustana. Certainly appreciate him taking the time. The final question, where is it? I lost it. I guess that was it. Oh, no, there it is. When retired, and because everybody eventually retires, what do you hope people remember you as a coach?
Well, it's like I said, it's interesting that you would ask that. Given what I just went through in losing my father, I would hope and pray they'd say the same things about me that so many have said about him, that his teams played with a tremendous ferocity, great tenacity. They were passionate, they were unselfish, and he cared about his players. And I think that, if those are the kind of words that people would choose when I'm hanging the whistle up, I'd be thrilled. And we've got a great thing going at Augustana. I feel like I'm just getting warmed up. But someday, when that happens, if those kind of comments are made in my direction, it'd be a terrific thing.
Very good. Well, Coach, I appreciate you taking the time to join us. We went a little long with you, but I appreciate it nonetheless. Certainly looking forward to seeing how the Vikings do the rest of the season. Off to a terrific start, 14-2, 4-1 as we turn the poll and look closer into February. 6 weeks left in the season. Of course, coming up, Milliken and Elmhurst in the next games up this week. As always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you'd like to share with those who may be tuning in?
Hey, Dave, thanks for all you guys do for Division III basketball. It's a terrific, as I tell people, and they say, well, you left Division I. I said, that's right, and I went up to Division III, and that's how I feel.
Well, wonderful. Love that saying, and appreciate you taking the time, especially after a hard week for yourself. I know we appreciate you taking the time to do so. Certainly our best to your family as well. Good luck to the Vikings this season. We'll look forward to talking to you down the road.
Thanks, Dave.
Take care. Coach Giovanni joining us here on Hoopsville. We're going to take a quick break. We're way behind schedule. We got to get to our next guest, our final one. Staten Island's men's basketball coach Tony Petosa will be joining us to talk about his team, who's off to just as good a start. Talk to him about the differences between what is going on there and what maybe everybody else is expecting. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com and the National Association of Basketball Coaches. We'll be back right after this.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
I know sports is important, but having the academic part along with it is a big plus.
I've discovered in myself, a newfound ability to overcome adversity at all different angles.
At a Division III school is really shaped around you developing yourself as a complete individual. The end result in my mind is you just become a very well-rounded person.
Before I came into college, I didn't really think I'd be able to balance so much. It helps a lot. You have a family with your team that can guide you.
With a D3 school, there's a lot of time for other opportunities. The coaches expect a lot of you during soccer, but after soccer, that's your own personal time to really find out who you are and other opportunities that you can pursue.
By balancing all of my interests, basketball, my leadership skills, and academics, I'm able to better prioritize my life and to manage it.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at d3hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
Three schools offer academic scholarships instead of athletic scholarships. This really puts the focus that the student athlete needs to maintain that GPA.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's more opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III. A lot of people pick schools just based on the sport and don't get that experience.
Being a Division III athlete and developing my leadership skills has definitely put my name out there and helped me get more recognition on campus, but more recognition nationwide. I did win the Jostens Trophy, which is based on leadership, academics, and then how well you do on the court.
I'm also the Schwartz Scholar of my class. Schwartz Scholarship is basically a scholarship that is given to a student who's identified as a likely leader.
At the end of the day, it won't matter how they play on the field, it will matter how they do in the classroom.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at d3hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
Division III allows you to be able to give yourself to other things. Not even just participate in them, but really get involved with them if you want to.
There's a lot of interaction. It's not just taking notes. You're actually doing hands-on things and better preparing yourself for your major.
Choosing a Division III school, I've had the opportunity to develop my leadership skills and to be more involved on campus.
Division III athletics, affords students the opportunity not only to participate in intercollegiate athletics at a competitive level, but also gives them the opportunity to, engage in the other interests in their campus and in their lives outside of that sport and outside of the academics on the campus.
And to have opportunity to have time to join clubs and being able to play basketball, it allows you to just be able to do everything you want to do. I wouldn't change it for the world.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Sorry, having a little trouble getting our next guest in line. Figure we'd just be better to come back up on air anyway, and hopefully the guest will give us a call. So if you have any questions for us, we'll certainly try and take your questions. Don't forget on Twitter, at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville, via Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville, or on email at hoopsville@d3hoops.com. Once again, Twitter at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville, email hoopsville@d3hoops.com, Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville are your ways of interacting with us. Don't mind me looking over my shoulder. I'm just checking out the phone when it ring. Lots of things to talk about around Division III. If you have any questions, please interact with us. We would love to hear from you along the way. obviously 6 weeks left to go. Certainly getting down to brass tacks, as it were. In a couple weeks, we will hear or see our first regional rankings. Of course, there'll be 3 private regional rankings and 1. Let me phrase that, 3 public regional rankings and 1 private one. Those coming up. The private one will basically be the last regional ranking that will help select the NCAA tournament fields in men's and women's basketball. And then it will also help at least determine the opening weekend of the NCAA tournament is who is the host. And then outside of that, we'll also have, of course, the weekends that follow that'll kind of help solidify that as well. So there's always questions about that. I refer you back to our interview, at least with the men's basketball committee chair, Steve Ulrich from the Centennial Conference, commissioner of the Centennial Conference. He talked to us about that setup and how that worked at the beginning of the year. We will hopefully be talking to him and to Dave Martin, the women's basketball committee chair, coming up on our marathon show on January 30th, a Thursday. We're going to go 10 a.m. Eastern to 10 p.m. Eastern. We've already got the board up as to where our guests will be slotted in, as it were, and we're looking forward to having you join us for that show. Plenty to talk about as we get ready, in that case, for the last 4 weeks of the season, and we certainly will want to talk to as many coaches, even players, et cetera, et cetera. Part of that, we will feature some interviews with me wearing maybe your favorite team's shirt or interviewing your favorite team or guest. We'll also be talking to maybe those who have contributed to the Hoopsville fundraiser. Please, to learn more, go to our Twitter page, especially go to Twitter page, Facebook page. D3hoops.com also has more information on our fundraiser. We are looking to raise funds for this show, which we basically pocket, and so we would hope you would consider at least helping us out in that sense. Should you hit the if you decide to take the perk at $10, we'll make sure to put your name on the contributor page we're putting together for D3Hoopsville.com. If you give us $25 and decide to give us or take that perk, we'll also publicly thank you. We'll start publicly thanking donors starting as early as Thursday's show, just so we have a nice long list of how we will do that. We'll also talk to, let's see, if you go to $50, you get all of those. By the way, I'll also follow you on Twitter if you so choose. If you hit the $50 and decide to take the perk, we'll also send you a Hoopsville t-shirt by the end of the basketball season. Should you choose the $100 perk, all of that, plus you get to see me wear your favorite school's shirt and interview a guest of your choosing, most likely from that school. And then if you hit the $250 perk, kind of sounds like public television if you're not familiar, $250 perk, all of that plus you will get to appear on the show as well. Just so you know, your donation does not have to be, you can do it anonymously is what I should say. You don't have to take a perk if you don't choose to. And you can all go through Indiegogo is our fundraising website. You can get all that information on Indiegogo or on D3Hoops.com or our blog as well on D3 Blogs, et cetera, et cetera. So lots of ways of communicating with us, and we certainly hope you will find a way to take time to help us out, if not others, so that others may learn about our program and what we're trying to do as well. So that's our fundraiser. We're a little over 30% of our goal. Our goal is not rock solid. It doesn't mean we get to our goal and that's where our campaign ends. Our campaign will run through February 9th no matter what. And the goal basically means one of two things. We hit the goal, we get more recognition. Sometimes fundraisers who hit their goal surpass their goal by a long, long ways. And so we would hope we would hit that goal and people would continue to contribute after that as well. Also, the reason for the goal is the website charges us a certain amount of fees. If we're under that goal, our fees are X. If we get over that goal, our fees are cut in half. And so certainly we thus get to keep more of the money that you are so kindly donating to us. So please consider us as part of the scenario of supporting Division III athletics. We want to improve this show. We want to make this show better. There's lots of ways we'd like to do that, certainly. And so we would at least like you to consider helping us out in that endeavor. We were hoping to hear from Coach Tony Petosa here on Hoopsville about Staten Island. Unfortunately, cannot seem to get a hold of Coach Petosa. We've left him a voicemail, have not heard back. We apologize for that inconvenience. What I can promise you is when we do get a hold of him, we'll do one of two things. We'll either line him up for the big show on the 30th or next Sunday, one of the two, whichever one works out the best. Or we will pre-tape an interview and put that up on the website as well. We apologize that he was unable to join us tonight. It happens on time to time. It's not perfect, certainly, as we try and do a lot of things with a avenues. So we appreciate at least trying to make it happen. We will hopefully hear from Coach Petosa at a later date, and we promise you we will catch up with him when we can. The last couple of minutes here on the show, so if you have any questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. You can also join us, send us questions at email hoopsville@d3hoops.com. That's hoopsville at d3hoops.com. And don't forget, also on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. We'll try and answer your questions if you have any here in the last couple of minutes here of the show. I know we got a lot of things upcoming that are may jump out at you. We mentioned the Wellesley Coast Guard game in women's basketball. I think that's going to be a thriller on Wednesday. We're at that point where in most conferences we've hit the double round robin. First rounds have ended and we're getting into the second rounds. The bigger conferences, we've hit that point and we're making the turn. In the medium conferences, we're just about wrapping up that, and then moving forward, we have obviously in the smaller conferences, we have that opportunity here coming up. Should also mention that obviously the NESCAC and conferences like that are a little bit different. On the men's side of things, I think the top 25 this week is going to be really interesting on how it all breaks down. You've got a lot of teams that took losses that I'm a little bit surprised by. Hold on a second. Let me just see here. Here's how it goes. The top of the top 25, somewhat quiet. Stevens Point, Worcester, Cabrini, Illinois Wesleyan, WPI, Amherst, WashU, and Whitewater all won their games. They all played a minimum of 2 games, with Amherst playing 3. They all won their games. Wittenberg's a tough one. They're the first ones in the top 25, sitting at number 9, who took a loss. They took 2, lost 72-46 to DePaul, and then lost a heartbreaker to Worcester, rallying back in that one, losing 69-62. What the voters do with Wittenberg, even what I will do with Wittenberg, is really a tough question. Then you go a ways. Williams, St. Thomas, who played 3 games, St. Norbert, Augustana, and Wesley all won their games. Messiah then lost to Stevenson, 103-99 in a double overtime thriller, which we talked about on Thursday. Messiah then gained back on the horse and beat Arcadia yesterday. St. Mary's beat York and then lost to Wesley, as we mentioned earlier. Purchase, Virginia Wesleyan all won their games. Bowdoin took their first loss of the season on Friday to Williams, 69-64. It'll be interesting to see what voters do with Bowdoin taking their first loss to a higher-ranked team. They then beat Hamilton. I think that game might have been today. It might have been yesterday. I don't remember exactly. Mary Washington won their 2 games, including against a receiving votes candidate, Christopher Newport. Wheaton lost both of their games to Carthage and Illinois Wesleyan. I think that granted, it's the top of the conference, but that may drop them out of the top 25. Carthage may pick up some votes as a result. Wheaton now with 6 losses. Tough to keep them in the top 25. Ohio Wesleyan had a good week, beat Wabash, and then beat DePaul. Albertus Magnus won their games. Oglethorpe won its only game. Colorado College, which fell into 25th this week, lost to Schreiner before beating Texas Lutheran. Not sure Colorado College can stay in the top 25 as a result. Those receiving votes, there was a cacophony of losses. Of the, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 14, 16, 18, 20 teams who received votes in the top 25 who weren't in the top 25. 2, 3, 4. Only 8 of them didn't lose a game. Christopher Newport lost to Mary Washington. Whitworth lost to George Fox. Marietta to Mount Union. Mount Union having a great season, won 10 games in a row at this point, including Wilmington, who you might remember beat a D1 team. But that win over Marietta, very good win for Mount Union. Emory lost to Carnegie and Mellon before spanking Case Western Reserve. DePaul, as we point out, got the big win over Wittenberg, but then lost to Ohio Wesleyan. William Patterson lost to Ramapo. Springfield lost to MIT. NYU lost both to Chicago and WashU. I'm not vote. I said last week I think I would not be voting for NYU until they got through at least this weekend. I think I just showed you why I wouldn't vote for them until they got through this weekend. Hope lost to Albion. Just when you thought Hope was resurrecting themselves, they're now 9-6. They were 8-6 after that Albion game. Babson lost to WPI. Not a bad loss to be sure, but they lost. Platteville lost to Whitewater. Not a bad loss, but they lost. Oswego State probably had the roughest week of the top 25. Lost 3 games. New Paltz for the first time since 2001. Then Brockport State, and then losing today to Geneseo State. Not a good weekend for Oswego State. So out of those teams, who might end up in the top 25? Well, it obviously depends on everybody else. But let's say Wheaton drops out. Let's say Colorado College drops out of the top 25 due to their weeks. Let's just say there's 2 openings available in the top 25. Does that mean it goes to Brockport? Does it go to Dickinson? Does it go to Texas Dallas, who only has 1 loss? What about Richard Stockton? Dubuque, Calvin, and St. Vincent didn't lose. And, of course, Stevenson has the win over Messiah and a win today against Lycoming. It's a tough question for top 25 voters. I think it's going to be, me included, there's a lot of questions as to what you can do there in the men's top 25, and I don't know if there's a really right answer, as it were. It's going to be a challenging week. Of my top 25, at the bottom, I had Virginia Wesleyan, who won their 2 games, including a win over Guilford, and a dominating 84-59. That says a lot about both teams, as that was a battle for first place. Stevenson won both games. Wheaton lost 2 games. Calvin won 2 games. Dickinson won. Mary Washington won. Bowdoin took a loss. I don't have a lot of availability in my personal top 25. The Whitworth lost. Does that mean I take them out, even though I had them 17th? So I don't have a lot of room to put a team in there. One team that, Richard Stockton, for example, has been getting a lot of attention. They're playing good basketball. They got a big game coming up against William Patterson. I think a lot of people may want to consider that as a good testament to figuring out what's going on in the Atlantic region. So the men's top 25, I think, is solidifying in some cases. I don't think there's a lot of room for teams to move into it, but we'll see, as it were. The women's side, you remember, only 1 team entered the top 25 last week, I think in surprising fashion. We'll see what happens the rest of the way. On the women's side, really kind of an interesting week. Amherst lost to Tufts. George Fox lost to Whitman, as we pointed out. Montclair State lost to Kane. Wheaton lost 2 games to Carthage and Illinois Wesleyan. St. Thomas lost that game. We mentioned 2 out of the last 4 games St. Thomas has lost now. They lost to Concordia Moorhead this week. John Carroll lost to Baldwin Wallace. Ferrum lost to LaGrange. We talked to Ferrum earlier. Bowdoin lost to Williams. Both Bowdoin teams losing there. St. Stevens Point on the women's side lost to Oshkosh. That's just in the top 25. In the receiving votes category, Moravian, Texas Dallas, Whitworth, DeSales, NYU, Elizabethtown, TCNJ, Vassar, Bethel, and Randolph-Macon all lost games. I think there's going to be a little bit more movement maybe on the women's side than we got last week, and there's going to be a little less movement on the men's side than we got in the last few weeks. It's going to be a really interesting change of scenery, as it were, for all the top 25 voters in both polls. We're going to wrap up the show. Don't forget, we'll be back on the air Thursday, 7 and 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Hold on. There aren't any questions that came in while I was looking at the top 25. I do not see any. We'll be back on the air Thursday, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time. We primarily talk, East, Mid-Atlantic, a little bit of the South, Great Lakes, and West regions. We'll also have our School of the Week. If you have a nominee, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville@d3hoops.com, or Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. Let us know who you think a School of the Week is. It's usually a school that is garnering attention, maybe for a school that doesn't normally do that, doesn't get the national attention, or maybe they got a big win even if they're 0 for 10 or something. And then Sundays we talk primarily Northeast, Atlantic, a little bit more of the South, Midwest, Central region are our primary focuses. To be sure, of course, our Coach's Corner as well. Don't forget, we got the Hoopsville fundraiser. That'll culminate on February 9th. But before that, on January 30th, we'll have a big 12-hour show, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. to drive support for that and to give you guys a reward for helping us in contributing to the show. That's going to do it for us. I want to thank Coach Ken DeWeese at Mary Hardin-Baylor, Coach Bill Geithner at Eastern Connecticut, Coach Stacy Brunner-Jones at Concordia, Wisconsin, Coach Brian Harvey at Ferrum, and Coach Gray Giovanni at Augustana. We will try and catch up with Coach Tony Petosa at Staten Island. We're sorry we missed out with him on the show this week. Thanks for tuning in to Hoopsville, as always, on Twitter at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville, email at hoopsville@d3hoops.com, and facebook.com/Hoopsville as well. Want to thank D3Hoops.com and the National Association of Basketball Coaches for their support as well. You've been watching Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com and the NABC. We'll be back with more Hoopsville on Thursday night, starting at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Good night, everybody.